Hey, ADHD fam. Are you tired of regular energy drinks? Do you need a pick-me-up that won't make you crash or give you the jitters? Zoom on over to Dubby Energy. They are a clean energy drink company that was created with you in mind. These powdered drinks will give you no crash, no jitters, and no angst like many other energy drinks out there. They are a US-based company that doesn't hide what's in their products. Pick up one of their tubs of powder to help energize your day. They have a lot of fun flavors and even some licensed ones with solo leveling. Each serving comes out to about $1 per drink, which is much cheaper than getting Starbucks, Dunkin', or any other canned energy drinks. And with our promo code, you can save 10%. Use code ADHDubby at checkout to save some green. That's ADHDUBBY. Check it out in the show notes below. Pick up your tub today and stay energized.
This episode's intro and outro music was brought to you by Solar Bloom with the title, It's a Tiny World. Check them out on Apple Music, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your music. What is up, everybody? Welcome into this week's edition of the ADHD podcast. I am one of your lovely, lovely co-hosts, Rob.
And I am your mediocre co-host, Steve.
Don't you dare say that, sir. You just got
Self-deprecation for the win. Woohoo!
You just got into a master's program, sir. There is no need for you to be self-deprecating on this particular episode as we are recording. Not to date this episode, but you just got into a master's program. You can't be poo-pooing on yourself here today.
Oh, I will always poo-poo on myself. You know that, good sir.
I mean, yeah, I do, but I try to, at least I try, I guess it's I don't know. I try to get you away from that. But today, guys, we're hitting on a subject that kind of hits close to me because it's something I've kind of been researching, kind of been looking into, and I just want to answer a question that's kind of been on my mind for a pretty long time. And it comes down to this. Why are athletes so obsessed, especially it seems now, with animation and animation culture? And I want to find that hidden connection between sports and animation. That's the goal of today's episode.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun little jaunt through different topics about, like, you know, how it connects to the sports, how it connects to our athletes, how it just, like, kind of connects with everything. And Robert, as you said that I got into my master's program, the kind of foundation for this episode is like your master's thesis that you wrote back in December. So don't sell yourself short today too much, and it's going to be a good time. So should we just kind of hop into?
I mean, I feel like yeah, we should hop into it, but basically we see it everywhere now, right? Like everybody's doing either a Dragon Ball Z celebration in the end zone or where they do something spectacular. People doing Sailor Moon dances during the Olympics long ago.
Got One Piece. They've been doing One Piece celebrations forever because it seems like One Piece has been around forever.
Especially Noah Lyles, the Olympian too, the sprinter. He's full blown into the whole anime culture. We're gonna talk about, you know, some of these particular athletes. You got guys like Jamaal Williams, NFL running back. You've got Evgenia. I always feel like I pronounce her name wrong because it's like really hard Russian. Evgenia Medvedeva. We're going to talk about her spotlight. I know Steve has a couple of athletes we're going to hit on a little bit as well, too.
I mean, even if you just look at our area, we just posted onto our story on Instagram that the Knicks are coming out with a, like, One Piece collab special edition, like, Luffy action figure wearing a Knicks jersey and, like, Knicks uniform, which I think is awesome. At the beginning of the season for the Yankees, you had Jazz Chisholm Jr. wearing a diamond straw hat necklace, which was absolutely beautiful.
It was so cool to see. It was
so cool. But there's just so many athletes out there, and like just sports teams and different cultures getting into animation and really getting more hardcore into anime. And it's so beautiful to see because like when we were growing up, there really was that big disconnect between like the jocks and the nerds. And like it was starting to fizzle out when we were in high school and everything, but it was still pretty much there.
To steal your line, Steve, 100% true. You started to see like the line slowly kind of like get erased out in terms of like that whole a big strong jock can't like an anime or watch cartoons still in their age, and it's like it's a refreshing breath of air, but also it's a trend, right? And not only is it a trend that is something that obviously is being just going on a rise right now, but it's something that's been rooted in history too. And it kind of just brings us back to the one connection that sports and animation seem to have is that they are vehicles for storytelling, right? Athletes are seen as modern superheroes.
Oh, yeah. I mean, athletes are just, there's so many things that come out of myth and legends. How you hear stories about even somebody like Babe Ruth pointing out where he was going to hit his home run, and that story is just being made into a legend that we don't know exactly the full story about it because it's grown from myths and it's grown from hearsay that just like every other good storytelling aspect, that's how we get our myths and legends. It's all hearsay. It's all, hey, my cousin's former roommate's best friend told me this crazy story about this person. And once enough people hear it and believe it, it becomes real in our brains or almost becomes like canon within our own stories.
For sure. And it's also thinking about, and I'm just thinking about other athletes in there too. So like Michael Jordan was, his own character, his own legend before Space Jam and getting involved with the Looney Tunes squad. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. Muhammad Ali, he's talked about as myth and legend as well. Float like a butterfly, sting like a bee. Iconic line, iconic phrase. LeBron James, even before stepping on the NBA court, was considered the next king of the game. And again, not copying, but following in Jordan's footsteps and taking on the Space Jam legacy and trying to get involved in that, which again, we'll talk more about why these crossovers seem to happen, but you definitely see the connection in the fact that both are vehicles for storytelling and for these athletes especially, and something that really started my initial wanting to dive into this to begin with was this thought of if an athlete has a genuine love or a passion for a fandom or a fan base, that they should be hopping on it and using that to kind of broaden their fan base, get more cultural capital, and make them more popular. Now you don't have to care what team they're on. You know who they are outside of the game, and that is something that more athletes, I feel like, need to pay attention to, especially when it comes to branding. And I know this is kind of different from our normal animation talk, but building those connections with other fan bases makes your presence so much more impactful.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely crazy. And there's just so much that we can connect to just how athletes and how you can just look at it as regular people, because that's really what they are. They're just like you and me. I still remember watching some of the old NHL commercials where they're like, hey, this player's just like you and me. And one of my favorite ones was Joe Thornton. And there was like, Joe Thornton butters his bread the same way that we do. and it shows him like, trying to butter a piece of bread, and he does it a little too hard. But he's also a hockey player, so he does things just a little bit different, but he's just like you and me. And it's so great to see a lot of these people embracing just these fandoms and everything so that they can connect to their fans, that they can connect to the every person. Like for some of the athletes out there, like Jamaal Williams, I forgot because I was reading your paper earlier, that he was the one that he was correcting. I guess it was just people talking about Pokemon.
Yeah, he was talking about a reporter. Yeah.
Where he was like, no, you're saying it wrong. It's this. And like, well, do you like Pokemon? I was like, yeah, of course I like Pokemon. I grew up in like the 2000s. Of course. Why wouldn't everybody loves Pokemon? Yo, Pikachu's the man.
Exactly. And speaking on something like that too, it brings us back to the idea of storytelling and the fact that, athletes, just like the normal person, connect to these characters' journeys, connect to these people's rivalries, connect to these people's stories of overcoming their adversities, right? A lot of people, I'm trying to think of the right word, but see themselves in Luffy right now and trying to be that cause for change for good, right? He might not be doing necessarily the right things all of the time, but he's doing it for the right reason, and that's what people want more and more, and that's what makes people, again, connect to these athletes and get them a bigger standing and a bigger branding and a bigger impact on their fan bases.
Well, yeah, because you can see in real time, especially with athletes like LeBron James, with athletes like Kobe Bryant when he was still with us, with athletes like Michael Jordan or Jamaal Williams, that you get to see their journeys from rookies to building up their careers and seeing them get better as players. Hell, you can even equate it back to looking at somebody like Christian Pulisic, with, not to date this episode, but we've already done that. The World Cup is going on right now, and like he started off his journeys in simple beginnings of just playing at a young age and was scouted and brought to Europe and played in Germany for the longest time to build up his career. You get to see him go through, and then he's gone from team to team. He's worked his way up into the U.S. national team, and he's now seen as Captain America. Like, he is a person that kids want to emulate here in the States if they like soccer. And yes, it's called soccer. For all of our English fans out there, we know that you call it football. We know that the world calls it football, but soccer is a term that comes from associated football, which was an English term, and they called it ASOC, which turned into a sock, which turned into a soccer, which turned into soccer. So England, you came up with this. It wasn't the Americans. So to you.
Look at you spitting out the facts and the etymologies of things. I am very impressed.
I went down a rabbit hole after watching a video at one point and saw this and I was like, oh. And the English are stupid for yelling at us for calling it soccer when they were the ones that came up with it and they just forgot about it.
Seriously, right? Seriously, that's
like
so funny.
It's like us overlooking the Trail of Tears, which we actually, our education system in some states does overlook that, and it really, really annoys me as a child of history. But that's a story for another day.
Thank goodness we didn't. Good old New Jersey was on that, these kids got to know this stuff thing.
Hooray!
But anyway, getting back...
Since this is an audio version, people can't see me doing the big, they're great thumbs up to you.
Just diving back in now, too, of this. Just talking about this concept, right, of, like, the animated athlete, right? We're associating them with traits like, Steve, you were saying earlier, traits like hard work and perseverance and self-improvement and friendship. When we see a lot of this in today's athletes. Go ahead.
You see that I was going to say, the power of friendship, that's what won the New York Knicks the entire thing.
Oh my
The
goodness. Absolutely. The power of friendship, the power of underdogs, everybody counting them out, everybody just going like, it's the Knicks. It's been 56 years. There's no shot.
It's the power of friendship and Danhausen that won them the championship.
We can't forget to thank Danhausen for cursing people along the way and uncursing us and, making things good for us.
I really want to get a Knicks house in, New York Knicks jersey right now. And, I'm really looking into it because on Fanatics, Knicks Housen is 12 characters long.
That's hilarious. I might join you on that, honestly, if that's a thing. I might join you on that, but we're just getting into this whole dynamic here where we see these athletes embody these traits, at least through our eyes, of how we can relate them to characters, right? And as we were talking about earlier in my paper, I bring up two specific athletes, Jamaal Williams and Evgenia Medvedeva, but of course there's dozens upon hundreds upon thousands at this point of athletes that are inspired by anime. I am just going to pull up a clip of Jamaal Williams to play over this right now, just to give you guys a little bit of insight as to why, when I was going into this athlete was probably the first thought that came into my head in terms of people I want to dive into the subject about specifically.
Anime is everywhere. It don't matter what team you on or anything. You can always appreciate somebody who loves anime. So even on the Colts team, I had a couple 4 or 5 players come up to me. I had a Koski do-rag on. It was like, Naruto, who's your favorite character? You know what I mean? It's just a great conversation starter. So if you love anime, you're gonna find a lot of people who love it. And they ain't gonna look like you, but y'all have that same thing in common.
But yeah, it kind of is this idea, right, that athletes really are inspired by this stuff, and it's not just kind of this hokey, geeky kind of response to what you're watching. You can relate a lot of what a lot of these animes, a lot of these old cartoons did, and promote the good sportsmanship, promote the good characteristics of being an active participant, whether that's in life or in sport.
Yeah. And that's that's just one of the best things about watching animation, and especially getting into some of the shonen anime or isekai anime or stories where it's that happens a lot in our own lives, where we go from just a normal day into something that could absolutely change our lives.
Again, just talking specifically about Jamaal Williams and kind of his outward expression of his fandom not only connects him in a way that, seems obvious on the front of, we have a common interest now. We now share a similar show in liking, let's just call it One Piece or Naruto, right? And then,
well, he's talking about Hokage, so that's Naruto right there, buds.
No, I know. I'm just saying in general, right? You don't only have to be a fan of this person because you're a fan of them as an athlete. You're now a fan of them because they're a fan of that anime, and thus kind of getting a little bit of the headspace of almost that athlete. It kind of relates the fan to the athlete. It brings them closer to them in that regard.
Yeah. I remember seeing clips of before remembering Jamaal Williams, seeing some of his interviews and be like, all right, cool. I'm a 49ers fan, but I like this guy because he's just himself. He's just a nerd and a weeb and just enjoying his life the best way that he can. And it's absolutely wonderful to see that on the main stage of the NFL, because how many times do you hear of NFL players just not being the best role models, of getting arrested for this, that, or the other thing, for
being in
saying
the wrong
something
situation,
stupid, just being just not the person that you want to emulate. Like, don't get me wrong, there are a lot of good athletes out there, especially in the NFL, that you do want to emulate. Somebody
of course,
like
yeah.
a Peyton or an Eli Manning, somebody like a Jamaal Williams, who he's just living his best life the way that he wants to be.
And seriously, he when do you hear an athlete not only just outwardly express any kind of fandom at all outside of the normal corporate team jargon, corporate team talk, but then you go ahead, and I know I just keep preaching on Jamaal Williams, but you have a guy in Jamaal Williams who's outwardly not only preaching his fandom, but also giving credence to it to say, like, look, no, these were my early building blocks of perseverance. I grew up in a single home where I didn't always have somebody there to watch me. So these animes and cartoons brought lessons to the table for people too, in really dark situations that people kind of tend to overlook in, like, the grand scheme of things. And I know it's kind of a sad looked upon thing when people say, oh, your kid was raised by TV, but sometimes that's all a kid has, and if you give them the right stuff, it can help, in certain situations. And like, I mean, yeah, go ahead.
Animation is just a great way to learn, like you said, coming over some of those adversities. It's also a very healthy way to show rivalries. Look at Ash from Pokemon, and Gary Oak. How much did they battle in the end? And then, spoiler alert, Ash becomes a Pokemon champion later on down the line, but everybody is cheering for him, including his rival, who tried to build him up the best way that he could and still be better than him. But Gary Oak followed his grandfather's footsteps and became a Pokemon professor. Well, Ash is still, actually 10 years old.
Yeah, exactly. But that's the fun of cartoons. We never have to necessarily move the dial in terms of age, but the lessons are getting learned. Right.
Like, how old is Bart Simpson? How long has he been at
Too long. He's been whatever age he's been for entirely too long. There's 30-something seasons. Like, it's just been a lot. Last point I'm going to bring up on, Jamaal Williams, just because I have the quotations in front of me as I'm talking about it. He's also he also brings up the idea that we brought up earlier with this being a vehicle to understand resilience, and he's talking about resilience to a reporter, and he's bringing up One Piece that he's 1,006 episodes into watching, and he goes, the thing that keeps me watching it isn't and that's a long season, that's a long series, that's a lot of things. What keeps me watching it isn't the fact that Luffy wins all the time. It's actually the opposite. Luffy loses a lot, but it's the fact that he just keeps that rubber band mentality, bouncing back up and going, what do I got to do to win? What do I got to do to change my situation? What do I got to do to get the next step up or get to that next level? And so many athletes, so many people can relate to this. And I'm sure, yeah.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely wonderful, because then you go from somebody like Jamaal Williams, who embodies that in his own sport, to looking at somebody like from the Savannah Bananas, the outfielder Reese Alexiadis.
Right.
I'm sorry if I butcher that name. Where he just, for shiggles, just during a game when he had a phenomenal catch, did from One Piece, when Frankie does his little super, he did that as a tribute to One Piece, because he loves that show. And everybody just kind of ate it up, and we're like, that is awesome. It's great to see that. And now for every game, he wears a cape to go off of that idea of being super, just like Frankie says, and tries to do different One Piece and Straw Hat poses. He plays the game primarily in a straw hat and has one always hanging around his neck. That, like, after people see that, they've started looking into it and watching it and just being like, hey, I want to understand his references, which is so cool. That, like, even something as mundane as a celebration, like there's it was the one power lifter, I think, at the Olympics a few years ago now. I don't remember which one it was. But he did the Gear 2 pose.
Yeah,
One
I
Piece.
do remember this. Yeah.
To kind of like, and he did that not to be like, oh, like, I'm doing this in honor of this. He did that legitimately to psych himself up. He was like, I'm going Gear 2 to power lift. And he like set a PB on that one, which was awesome, if I remember correctly.
And it's so funny how people draw from that too, though. And but I didn't want to cut you off, so go ahead and finish your point, and then I'll bring up what I was going to roll into.
No, that's all I was going to say. Is just, it's great to just see, like, yeah, it's nice to connect with your fans and be like, yeah, I'm doing, like, with doing, like, either the super and the Frankie pose or doing the Doflamingo walk as he hits a home run and just walks into home base for that. Or even, like, hitting Gear 2, or with somebody from actually one of my favorite animes, Yuri on Ice, they learned how to do their actual routine, which was absolutely bonkers. Because I'm just like, there are some things that probably shouldn't be done in real life, and then I watched Yuri on Ice and I was like, oh my god, this is all rooted in realism. The stuff that's done in the show, you can do in real life.
I'm so happy you bring up Yuri on Ice right now. I'm so happy you bring that up, because the next athlete that I want to talk about in our little breakdown here is somebody who, as we transition from, celebrations to actual full-blown participations in it, or better yet, routines in it, Evgenia Medvedeva on the world stage did this whole Sailor Moon routine. And when I tell you she did a whole Sailor Moon routine, I mean she did it complete with magical girl transformation, having a plushie of Luna the cat, and dancing around with that plush figure throughout the entire process, and being in the whole outfit and garb. And talking about it afterwards, she talks about the connection that she has to Sailor Moon, and how that was kind of her one piece of normal living in an environment where she was training to be on this bigger stage, on this big stage in front of all these people around the world, getting these crazy accolades, and this being her little connection to kind of normalcy, and being able to, again, authentically and genuinely express your fandom and put it into your athletic ambitions is kind of one of the coolest things you can do in sporting language and in animation language, because, again, you're just building this cultural equity around the world. Evgenia Medvedeva is going to be popular whether you know her as the figure skater, the Russian figure skater, or you know her from being that girl who did the Sailor Moon routine. And that's the cool thing. It makes the world a little bit smaller.
I mean, hell, another one that you could go off of that instead of just, like, doing something for just whatever's sake or talking about it and putting it in to your routine, you look at, like, Zelina Vega from the
WWE
wrestling world.
Yeah. Rey Mysterio too, with all his outfits. I'm sorry to cut you off. I just thought about that. Yeah.
Rey Mysterio as well. And even, like, looking at the New Day, a lot of them bringing in different animations that they have loved growing up. Other stories. I mean, hell, the New Day dressed up as Power Rangers.
Which, it's so sad to see the New Day is no longer in WWE. I do miss seeing our boys Kofi and Xavier, and all them out there. But hopefully
I
bigger
just
and
hope,
better for them soon.
I hope that they take some time for themselves and let them be them. And I would love to see Austin Creed team up with one of my favorite people nowadays, Megaran, to do some more rapping because he
Yeah.
is on a few songs and has done a couple things with Megaran that I absolutely love. And I would love to see more of them working together.
I could definitely hear that. I could definitely see that working out in the future for those two.
But but just going off of wrestling real quick,
Yeah.
you like how you see a lot of the wrestlers using special gear and everything. There's a lot of crossover even just from the fans going into like the wrestling world.
UFC too. Israel Adesanya, the style bender.
That there are just a lot of fans that the reason they got into a lot of this stuff was because even though we know that wrestling is not fake, it is another way to hear a story. And there's a lot of things that you can connect to the hero's journey, that you can connect to rivalries and overcoming adversities. A lot of the stuff that we see in everything that we consume, essentially.
We live for a story.
Just a lot of wrestling fans are just massive nerds, and that's exactly what we're what we're getting at with these talks is athletes are just massive nerds, a lot of them. And it's beautiful to just see that they're how the culture is with everything, that they're allowed to be themselves.
Yeah, that's the cool part right now. Honestly, it's kind of fun to know that we're getting closer and closer to that animated athlete that I was kind of describing earlier that can live authentically between both lines, get this cultural capital, get this cultural economy going for themselves, and really make themselves a bigger brand in their own personal branding. But I wanted to ask you, because it's kind of something I'm thinking of before we go into our next segment, which anime characters do you think make the best role models for athletes, for young people? What's your first thought as you're thinking about this?
Well, my first thought for all of this is as much as I am new to the world of One Piece, Luffy is a phenomenal person to be honest, take his teachings into your own life, because everything that he revolves around is about freedom, is about friendship, is about food. The three F's that we need in our lives.
Freedom,
friendship, friendships,
food.
and food. The three F's that you should live by, everybody.
I like that. Right? We might need to make that a shirt. We might need to make that a shirt on the T Public site at some point. The three F's of what are we calling this?
It's the three F's of life.
The three F's of life: friendship,
freedom, and food.
My answer to this question that I posed would be Simone from Gurren Lagann. And I pick him because he's not necessarily your first thought process. And even as you're watching it, if you've never watched it, he's not your first thought of, that's going to be my main character down the line. And then
because everybody thought it was going to be Kamina.
And then he just takes the mantle.
And then something happens to Kamina. I don't want to ruin Gurren Lagann because everybody should go watch that show. It is one of the
quintessential animes to watch, honestly. One of the most quintessential.
I love that so much.
One of the most quintessential animes that you need to watch. But Simone definitely in my head would be, I'm still writing down this three F's of life.
You're going to be the drill that pierces the heavens. But another good character to try to bring into your lives, and this isn't a main character at all, but probably one of my favorite characters in any animation at all, and I'm kind of like wearing it at the moment, is Uncle Iroh.
Yeah.
For recording this episode, I've been trying, throughout the World Cup, I've been trying to wear soccer jerseys almost every day, for either the teams that I'm supporting or if I don't have that team, a player for that team, or just kind of like wearing something that connects me to the sport for the day to have a talking point with somebody. So today I'm wearing my Fire Nation jersey. That on the back of it is Zuko, but Uncle Iroh is the person that you need to emulate because of his empathy, his kindness, his love for just the world around him, for using his words over his fists like his brother would. And just that is the person that you want to be. And throughout everything, he also shows that if kindness and words and love does not fix things, and this person is just being a complete and utter wanker, it's okay to punch him in the face and walk away.
My somewhat sarcastic but completely real other answer for this, if it's not an anime character, it's a cartoon character that we're rolling with. Grunkle Stan would be someone that I would potentially consider a role model. Not for, teaching a bear to drive, but we'll talk about that later on.
I have a sticker that I got at Comic-Con, I think, this past year when we went. That is Grunkle Stan with like a little like ribbon around him that has writing on it that just says "Dismantle the oppressive system," and I'm like, yes. And I'm like, I love Grunkle Stan.
That's freaking phenomenal.
Grunkle Stan, as grifty as that man is, he truly cares about his family. And don't want to get into spoilers for Gravity Falls because everybody should watch Gravity Falls.
If you haven't by now, that's kind of your own fault, though. It's been out for a long enough time.
We also did do an entire episode talking about Alex Hirsch and Gravity Falls. That Alex, I'm gonna re-put this out there for just the internet. Please get us in connections with Alex Hirsch. I would love to talk with him about things. I think this would be like the weirdest podcast for him to hopefully hop on if he hasn't heard about us yet. Please, people,
just keep doing it. Just keep poking our name out there. You'll never know. Get us
to Alex Hirsch. I still want to interview him after interviewing Tom Moore.
Seriously, I'm still kind of awestruck that we've gotten so lucky with all of our guests in these interview processes. So I'm always just thankful for whenever we do get those interviews in, and to switch it back up again, diving back into our ADHD conversations, right? Diving back into right. It's just fun to see how these athletes are using their fandoms to kind of stand out from the crowd, right? Stand out, kind of make themselves known. Noah Lyles, and I just say him, but the countless amount of Kamehameha celebrations, Dragon Ball Z celebrations that you see everywhere now. Israel Adesanya with a lot of his references in anime or in Avatar: The Last Airbender. I remember one specifically for Israel when he was doing his weigh-in. He was doing the rock stance from Naruto.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Myles Garrett and his love of anime, and David Njoku, some other NFL guys doing the fusion dance for a celebration at one point. De'Aaron Fox with his Dragon Ball shoe collaboration, like Steve was mentioning before.
Wasn't there an NFL team that tried to do the Ginyu Force stance?
Yes. Oh my God! I need to track that down for the promo video for this, because if I can find it, I'm going to put that out there. It was either a soccer team or a football team or...
Yeah, somebody was doing the Ginyu Force, and I absolutely loved it, and I was like, all right, this is cool.
All right, these guys are cool with me. Well, no matter what, these guys are cool with me now. I don't even care what I hear about them. They just did the Ginyu Force. They just struck Ginyu Force pose. We're in.
They just struck Ginyu Force. There's only, unless it's, on the Dallas Cowboys... or the Seattle Seahawks, or Tottenham Hotspurs, or either of the Manchester teams, I really don't care.
Yeah,
I'll support you.
Right, and
it's also to toss in there is Borussia Dortmund. For all of my like soccer fans out there talking about the Manchester teams and Borussia Dortmund, they can both die in a fire.
Yeesh. I mean, I understand the passion behind the
the-
answer, but yeesh.
Oh, those teams I have a deep-seated like rivalry and hatred with.
So
the worst one is a different story, but that's time for when we talk.
yeah,
later.
Exactly.
Not in the episode.
Off mic. So, and this kind of goes into the parts where it turns a little bit more into us telling you things and us kind of thinking about just our own opinions and thinking more inwardly. I'm posing this question out now to Steve, and I'm going to kind of think about it too, because I kind of threw it out there and left it out there. Do you think athletes doing some of these anime and animation-inspired celebrations, and do you feel like it makes them more relatable? And I feel like I kind of answered this in my points, and this was kind of the whole point of my research, right?
No, I definitely think that makes them more relatable. Like I just said, if there was that one crew that did the Ginyu for us, like, yeah, no, that's awesome. I would do something like that if I was like playing football or soccer. I would try to figure out like stupid celebrations like that. And yeah, it makes me actually like care about the sport. It makes me actually care about the players. And I definitely think that it makes them more relatable because you can hear, a football player talk about how many millions of dollars that they make per game or like per season. And that's just like, all right, cool. I'll never make that much money. I'm going into youth ministry. I'm not making any money.
The funny part about this in this random part of the conversation is that if we see the connection there, the athletes definitely should see the connection there. And the fun part now is that even the leagues and the teams themselves are getting involved in this. And you can see this from...
Like we said at the beginning of the episode, we were talking about the Knicks and the Luffy figure.
And we can see this in a countless amount of ways, whether it's the Knicks and the Brunson figure that's going to come out, which 100% I'm getting that. I don't care how much of that piggy bank I need to spend to go get that thing. I'm getting that thing. But anyway, you can see it with the Dodgers and the Demon Slayer night. You can see it with the NH... Oh, I'm sorry.
I was going to say the Dodgers have also done a One Piece night. And they, I know that the Boston Red Sox had a Luffy bobblehead, I think either earlier this season or last season. There's just so many different connections with the teams nowadays, whether it be an anime night or a One Piece night or, like you said, a Demon Slayer night, to even looking at making NFL games more fun to watch, because to be honest, I don't like watching American football.
And as I love American football, but the thing that you're talking about is absolutely true. You're diversifying the product to the fan bases, not only in the fan base experience in the moment of being in the stadium watching these things and being able to get something like a Tanjiro bobblehead on Demon Slayer night at Dodger Stadium. You're also going to be able to sit there and watch an NHL game with your kids and explain the game to them while they're watching Big City Greens, because they've augmented the reality of that broadcast to make it more connectable. And sometimes it doesn't feel like a genuine partnership. It kind of feels like a marketing or a money grab. And I'll leave that kind of up to you in terms of what you think about that.
Teacher, there's one other thing I want to add into that.
Okay, sir, please feel free.
What I was also trying to get at with the watching American football is Nickelodeon will take games and like augment reality, like you said, with the Big City Greens and the NHL. They'll take different games, and like when somebody scores a touchdown, they get slimed, or they like have fun graphics, or it's like you have SpongeBob on the field. That they're taking that nostalgicness and adding it in to make it more entertaining to watch, because I would rather watch that and watch a player get slimed than just watch a football game and just like, all right, cool. I've sat down for 5 hours and watched like 30 minutes of actual playtime. This is BS.
But and that's the point too for the for the purest of the fan base of whoever the sport is. They're going to be upset at watching that augmented game. However, the league isn't going to be upset that they put that out there and spent the money on that resource, because guess what? Not only am I getting now a second revenue stream of streaming or whatever it is in terms of where that money's coming in, now I'm double dipping and I'm going to be spreading my fan bases to these kids. Now this kid might like the Pittsburgh Penguins all of a sudden because he watched a Big City Green game and was just there with his dad watching a game. I'm just bringing out names. I know they happen to participate in one of the Big City Green games, and they've had a couple of them. And the point that, we make out with this is that, like, these organizations, these teams are investing in these collaborations, and people don't talk about it enough in terms of how smart of a strategy that is in terms of building that cultural economy, building that transcultural fandom where borders don't matter anymore. Only the screen does.
Yeah. And, like, especially as you were going to try to get into before a little bit, it's definitely, like, or almost gamifying watching a game. That's just a money grab, in my opinion. Like, they're just trying to get more views, to get more money, to get more sponsors. And, like, for some of that stuff, I feel it's not paying homage to the animation that's happening.
So,
like, with the NHL and the Big City and, like, Big City Greens, that I see as, like, a nice connection, because that's not a major IP that a lot of people talk about.
and
I think it's cool that it shows like that connection. And for those who know Big City Green, they know that it's talking to the salt of the earth. It's talking to the everyday person with that animation.
Absolutely. And you're talking about things like this too, and I think the Dodgers and Demon Slayer one is a very real connection, especially between the fact that you have Yamamoto and Shohei Ohtani on that squad.
The Dodgers connections, yes, that is a big connection, because they have, I think, like, 3 Japanese players on the team now?
Yeah, I think so. And then something like the NFL and Simpsons, anytime they collab, I just see that as a money grab for Fox, and I don't mean that in any kind of disrespectful way, other than it's a smart strategy.
I see the same thing with Nickelodeon. I think that the gamifying and the animationifying the NFL games for Nickelodeon is also just a cash grab.
Oh, yeah, I think so too, but there's some that I feel like it's a better connection than others, but I definitely agree that, like, the Fox games, the Nickelodeon games are definitely cash grab oriented more so than the genuine connection between the club or the organization and the IP that they're going to be doing their partnership with.
But then on the flip side, you have something that is very much connected to animation and very much connected to culture, which is probably one of my favorite things in the entire world. You look at the Anaheim Mighty Ducks, and I'm calling them the Anaheim Mighty Ducks because that's where they started. That's where they started. And I'm not talking about the Mighty Ducks, the movie with Emilio Estevez.
Sorry.
As wonderful as that movie is, I love the first 3 Mighty Ducks movies. But I'm talking about the animated TV show.
Yeah.
That is where the Mighty Ducks got their logo from.
I know. Which is,
it was
again,
that connection.
How sports and animation tend to have this reciprocal relationship, and I'm sorry to cut you off. It's another point on my paper that I brought up, and I didn't even think about it in that regard until you brought it up, but it's absolutely true. It's another example of that reciprocal relationship that animation and professional athletics seem to have with one another, in the fact that they can tell the story of anything through their medium. So it makes it that much easier for you to connect. So go ahead, Stephen, keep finishing on your Anaheim Ducks point.
I was just going to say that it's like with the Anaheim Ducks, like, there was a reason why the Ducks were called the Mighty Ducks, and it was because of Disney and being in Disneyland. And I am so sad that when I was out in Anaheim, I did not get to go see a Ducks game because I've recently seen on Instagram that the organist for the Anaheim Ducks puts in a lot of video game music in between and leading into like, you know, the charges and let's go chants that like you'll hear the Legend of Zelda, you'll hear Super Smash Bros songs, you'll hear Kirby songs, and I'm just like, all right, cool. As much as I like the Golden Knights, I'm not too happy with some of their players, so I don't know if I can support them next year, which means I'm 100% going to become a West Coast fan of,
and Torts
like,
is out too.
I would say, don't get me wrong, New York Rangers fan right here, tried and true. I know I grew up in New Jersey, but my brother actually, you know, threatened me with bodily harm when I said I was not going to be a Rangers fan. And became a Devils fan. He was like, no, you've grown up as a Rangers fan because of me. And you're a Rangers fan. He's like, oh, well, so my friends are Devils fans. He's like, no,
you're not.
They're wrong. You're a Rangers fan. I'm like, okay.
Oh my gosh, that's hilarious.
I'm gonna, like, because of all of the connections with seeing more of the nerd stuff that's happening out in Anaheim, I'm going to become my West Coast team is going to become the Anaheim Ducks because I absolutely love them. And they actually have one of my favorite players on their team right now, a former New York Ranger, Chris Kreider, who is my favorite Ranger of all time outside of Wayne Gretzky.
I hear you on that one. It's hard to argue at some points. But We've been talking a lot about how the athlete has borrowed from animation to up their personal brand, and how we've also talked about how organizations and teams are doing the same thing. I want to talk about it on the inverse now, how animation has borrowed from sports to elevate themselves in the past too. And the things that I really think about, because I'm a weird animation history buff nerd kid, when I was diving into this, the first thoughts that I had was Bugs Bunny and Baseball Bugs, where we get the term screwball from. And then the other things that I talk about that I didn't write in our show notes for Steve, so I apologize for throwing this in on you late, is the Goofy shorts that Disney promoted. I forget, these were the 30s, 40s, when it was like, Goofy shows you how to ski, Goofy teaches you gymnastics, and it's like, animation has
I still remember watching those when I was a kid.
And animation has a way of articulating the athletic form so, A, comically, but B, in a way that you feel it exaggerated wise.
You see it comically, but you also see it accurately too. Like, you look at even just jumping ahead from Bugs Bunny and Goofy into some of the more modern adaptations, even looking at anime with like Blue Lock, and how a lot of those things are, yes, they're over exaggerated with like the shots on goal and everything and all of that stuff. But at the same time, it helps you learn and teaches people about the sport.
And to jump on that point too, there's so many sports animes.
It inspired, I think for not this World Cup, but maybe like last World Cup, that Japan's actual like home kits wearing the samurai blue were based on the Blue Lock jerseys, which I think is absolutely awesome.
It's so much fun to make those connections, and that's the fun part.
Yeah, because you can have the over exaggerated things like within anime to like in haiku when you see them going up for spikes and like how time slows down. You're like, all right, this is kind of cool and seeing everything. But then you have an anime like Yuri on Ice that's the reason why I got into learning more about figure skating. Was because of that anime and seeing how competitive it is and how intricate it is and learning about the point systems. They're like, oh, this is really cool. And with that anime, how accurate it was to what you can do in real life. Everything that is shown in that show is doable in real life. They don't do like these crazy like 5 million spins. It's like, no, they show how hard it is to do a triple Lutz or a triple axel, and you're like, oh damn.
And then on the, not necessarily on the opposite end, but on a different perspective on it, I'm going to look at a franchise in the States like Space Jam. And if Space Jam, if Jordan wasn't an icon because of his play on the court or because of his shoe deal, this movie, Space Jam, made him that icon, right?
I like how you were talking about basketball and his shoes and didn't bring up anything that he played baseball, because that is like the running gag of the whole movie.
Oh, absolutely, and I think that's also kind of the fun of it too, because he gets to poke fun at himself, which he obviously had to agree to, but like that's what makes him feel closer to us, and that's what makes him feel larger than life to us. While yeah, he's on the big screen, he's in Tinseltown, he's playing basketball with frickin' Bugs Bunny and Daffy Duck. But he's just as normal as you and I, because he wants to sit there and play baseball and do golf and hang out with his friends. But kind of this...
It also has one of the best cameos in all of, like, movie history. And yes, I'm talking about Bill Murray.
I understand. And it was a great call out. But it's just funny how we do this with kind of these animations, and how animation can help these athletes turn themselves from, and I know it's kind of easier now with the small world, with the social media and all of that, but especially back then, animation could have been a vehicle for a lot of athletes to turn themselves just from a localized or a nationally known thing to a international, global legend.
Mm-hmm. No, definitely, and I think that they were going to try to do more with the Looney Tunes and like Space Jam IP originally after Michael Jordan, and they're like, oh, who else can we get to like be a part of this? And like they tried to come up with other ideas and tried to come up with other sports. I think they were gonna try to talk to, it might have been Ken Griffey Jr. or somebody like that, to do like a baseball version of Space Jam, but they just couldn't find the right person, and they didn't want to just churn out something that was at that time slop. And then years later they come out with Space Jam 2 with LeBron James, and that was just slop.
And listen, it had, I will give it some credence to the fact that it had its moments, but it definitely doesn't compare to the first, and that's kind of the whole point that we're kind of bringing up here, is that I feel like it loses its genuineness, and when it loses its genuineness, that the fans can see that. The genuine connection to the IP, the genuine connection, or allowing oneself to be a little bit more vulnerable inside of the script. Like, it just doesn't feel right with LeBron in it, and it's not even to take anything away from LeBron. Like, I'm sure he tried and did everything that he could have done to make it a better product on the long term, but there was no way you were ever going to compete with the original Space Jam movie. It was too iconic. It was too memorable. It was one of those first, like, really cool attempts at that live action and cartoon mashup. For a long time, we didn't really get that till Roger Rabbit, and now we're going to get that again pretty soon in Acme vs. Coyote and some other films this year. Like, it's interesting to see it, right? It's interesting to see the homages come back, and it's interesting to see just how much animation and athletics play on themselves.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And I hope that more studios and more IPs take that idea of understanding that the animation is going to be for the fans, and maybe not fully making the sports like 100% at the time. Like, if you look at Blue Lock, if you look at Yuri on Ice, if you look at Haiku, if you look at all of like the subgenre of sports anime. Sports isn't the main focus of it. You look at something like Ted Lasso, that, yeah, soccer is a major part of that story, but it's
not
all
the
about
only
the
thing.
connections around it. It's everything that draws us in for that story. It's the friendships, the rivalries, the highs and lows of the journey, and all of that. It's just, it's not 100% about the sport, but you learn so much about the sport. For those who are now getting into the World Cup this season, there are some people that I talked to about, like, yeah, I'm really into it because it's here in the USA, but I watched Ted Lasso and I got to learn a little bit more about what soccer is and more about the culture. And I'm like, yeah, no, it's a ton of fun. It's great to learn about something like that. And if you can learn it through the lens of anime, if you can learn it through the lens of Space Jam or something like that, that's what is the true connection with everything. Is it's just making it for the people and about the people. Don't sell your soul for, everything out there. Don't sell your soul to become a billionaire or a millionaire. Do it for the love of the game.
And that's what we're seeing now, especially with big big production company movies versus indie churnouts right now. We're seeing that a lot, where we're tired of the copy paste material. We want something genuine. We want something new. And the stats are proving that people will go to the theater to watch something that's at least genuine and new. Between Backrooms, between Obsession, between Amazing Digital Circus, we're seeing that the indies are coming back, and it kind of was a random tie-in for this episode, but it's absolutely true, and it also helps tie into the fact of the future of that animated athlete. And in my view of it, right, the more athletes are genuine with their fan bases and then being able to express it in ways like a Jamaal Williams, like a Evgenia Medvedeva, like a Israel Adesanya, like so many countless others are starting to do, you can really build up some good cultural equity and kind of make your fan base more than just your field of play. And what we're going to kind of start to see, and I think it's really something that's going to be fun too, is like athletes producing animation. And I know there's some NFL athletes that have retired and have gone into the animation field, and I know there's some that to produce high-end stuff as well, but I feel like you're going to start to see more athletes kind of dip their toe into the animation industry to tell their story, whether it's through voice acting, whether it's through producing and budgeting for these projects that are going out there. I feel like you're going to start to see that a lot more. And I also feel like, as much as I like to harp on the whole augmented reality games and talk about, how it kind of takes away from the sports purist view of a game, they're not going to go away. The anime nights, a lot of these things that you're seeing as trends are not trends. They're here to stay.
Yeah. And I hope that the teams that do anime nights, that do this and that type of nights, do it for the love of the game. That it's not just going to be a cash grab for them. That they do actually care about the IPs that they're brandishing for that night. Whether it be Demon Slayer, whether it be One Piece, whether it be Star Wars nights, because I know a lot of different places do Star Wars nights. That I hope that it's not just to try to get butts and seats. I do hope that it is a true care for that IP, because somebody on staff or there was a player that came up saying, hey, I think this is cool. I think we should do this.
Yeah, right, exactly. It was probably some suit that didn't have any idea. Hey, my son likes this. He has no connection to his son either. Hey, my son likes this game. I want to put it up on our screen so he'll like me a little bit more. Like, that's not what it's about. It's about actually enjoying the product, making a connection with the people participating, the people involved, in making it something that is meaningful. That's the big thing that everybody wants anymore. In a world full of AI slop, in a world full of corporate nonsense, we want to see something that's real.
Oh, yes. I agree.
So, last kind of 2 questions before we kind of wrap up for the night and kind of take away the kid takeaways here.
I was going to say, I thought that was a good place to wrap it up, but yeah, let's go.
2 questions. 1, which athlete do you think in your own mind deserves an animated series? And you can brew on that for a second. And then the second question, which anime character do you think would come in and dominate a real sport?
Anime character to dominate a real sport. I'm gonna do a cop out on this one and just say Goku, because I think that he would. All right, fine. You really want me to get into this?
Yes, I want. That's the whole point.
Okay, I have to look up their name because I forget the name of this character, and I'm so sorry. Because it's been a hot minute since I've seen. Okay, I was right. I think a person that would absolute dominate in any sport that they would try to do is Sung Jin Woo from Solo Leveling.
That's a good call.
Jin Woo would just decimate everybody because he works his butt off to make sure that he is good for all of the stuff. I love Solo Leveling. That is my character. If you also want to get into it, another person that I think would also dominate, and I'm just going to pick a sport. I think they would dominate in soccer because they are badass as all heck. Zuko. Tell me that Zuko would not be a great striker.
Okay.
He would legitimately light teams up.
Okay, I got 2 for you.
Those are my real things.
I got two characters that would dominate a sport, and then I got an athlete that should get their own animated series at some point. But Satima, aka One Punch Man, definitely deserves to be a boxer of some variety, shape, or form, because that would just be spectacular. And then, since you brought up One Piece before, I'm going to bring up the swordsman Roronoa Zoro, and he would be an excellent tennis player. He would destroy people on a tennis court.
You could also just put Sanji in as a striker for soccer, or put Luffy as a goalie for either hockey or soccer, and would.
Well, and that fits the description of a goalie too, because goalies are so just like airheaded in a way that it's so funny that you say Luffy as the goalie.
Luffy would 100% be a hockey tendy.
Oh my, absolutely. He has goalie energy through and through. Oh my lord.
I love hockey tendies because they are the sweetest guys that you will ever meet, and they're just happy. And we don't know why. They're just happy and psychotic, and we don't know why. But they're the best. They're the best. I love tendies. And I don't mean chicken tendies. Well, I do mean chicken tendies.
I mean, who doesn't love a good chicken tendy? And then the last thing I'm going to say for, athletes, this athlete, and I feel like it's going to be a fairly obvious answer here, he deserves a shonen anime. I'm talking about Jalen Brunson. Jalen Brunson, that man's story is something that needs to be in cinema. A guy who is underlooked, a guy who's undersized, a guy who is under expectations, a guy who's a second round pick, turns out to be one of the best players in the game, and he's now bringing a city essentially back to life with such an iconic basketball area. That in my head would just scream of a 2-season mini-series.
Absolutely perfect. A player that I would like to see, and it can be anime, it could be animation, but I think that it would be a fun story to see, would be Brock Purdy.
Oh, that one would be a really good one.
Brock Lobster, the Purdy quarterback, Mr. Irrelevant, who deserves a Super Bowl, I think that an animation of something for Brock Purdy would be awesome.
Dude, that would be so fun. That would be so fun. I think we're at a good place here, though. Guys.
Yeah, I think so.
Guys, thank you once again for tuning into the ADHD podcast. Leave a drop in the comments tonight and in this episode for your favorite athlete anime crossover or your favorite athlete animation moment that you got to see. Follow the podcast. Leave us a review. Thank you guys once again so much for tuning in. Talk about us to your friends if you like cartoons. Thank you so much once again. I've been your boy, Rob.
And I've been your boy, Steve.
Good night, everybody. Good night, good morning, good days, later days if you watch The Weekenders.
Once again, I'm still
Thank you for tuning into the ADHD podcast. We hope you've enjoyed our nonsense and whimsy. Please make sure to follow us on our social medias. Instagram at Animated Dysfunction Pod. Blue Sky at ADHDpodcast.bsky.social. And TikTok at Animation Dysfunct. Links below in the show notes. Check out our merch store on TeePublic. Links for that are also in the show notes. Thank you again for listening, and remember, keep this podcast weird.